I've been learning Spanish for quite some time now, but if I could start my Spanish learning journey again in 2026, there are definitely things that I would do completely differently this time around. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of my best tips on how to learn Spanish the right way. These are the things that I would do if I could start over right now. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And now let's get started. Okay, number one is don't wait too long to start speaking. We're starting with this one because I feel like it's the most important one. And this is the biggest mistake that I made when I started my Spanish learning journey. So basically, I've been learning Spanish like on and off for many years now. I first started when I was maybe like 17 or 18, and at that time I knew nothing about language learning, and I definitely did not prioritize speaking. And then even later on, speaking has always been something that I kind of avoided, and that left me at this really awkward stage where my reading and listening comprehension are really, really good. The fact that I also speak French really helps with that, so I can understand really advanced texts, and when I talk to native speakers or I watch something online, I can understand pretty much everything, but my speaking skills are still lacking, and this is something that I am still working on today. And I think my biggest problem still is that when I have to say something in Spanish, I just freeze, I get really nervous, and that stems from the fact that I had never really prioritized speaking in the past, so I just need more practice. So if I could start learning Spanish again, I would start speaking much earlier. Even if my Spanish were super basic, even if I made a ton of mistakes, that is totally fine. But the most important thing is actually prioritizing speaking, putting yourself in situations where you need to speak Spanish, because that is the only way to get comfortable speaking, by getting lots and lots of practice, right? And if you make mistakes, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. That is part of the process, and everyone makes mistakes. Even native speakers make mistakes sometimes when they speak their native language, so that is completely fine. Yeah, speaking is something that I am actually still trying to change right now, and my favorite way to practice speaking right now is taking online Spanish classes with Lingoda. You guys have heard me talk about Lingoda many times on my channel before, because I genuinely really like them, and they have made a huge difference in my own Spanish learning journey. It's an actual language school with real teachers and structured classes. They offer classes for different levels, including A1 and A2, so you can start speaking pretty much from the very beginning. And that is exactly what helps you become comfortable in Spanish, lots and lots of practice. The classes are in small groups, so you actually have the opportunity to speak during the class. The teachers have always been very nice. They give you valuable feedbacks, and something that I really appreciate about Lingoda is that the lessons focus on real life stuff. You guys know that this is one of my biggest priorities when learning a language. I want to learn a language to actually speak it. And if you're someone who gets really nervous about speaking and about online classes, which is something that I can definitely relate to, you can actually see what the class is going to be about, and you can look through the materials beforehand. So you can actually prepare a little bit before you join the class, which is something that makes a huge difference and makes speaking a lot less intimidating. And if you're watching this and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready to start speaking, that is totally fine. You don't have to commit right away. Lingoda is offering a 7-day free trial, so you can click the link in my description and get 7 days for free, and also up to 3 group classes or 1 private class completely for free to see if it's the right fit for you. And if you do decide to continue after your free trial, you can use my code to get 35% off during the back to school sale. Again, the link is in the description as well as the code. So if you've been putting off speaking Spanish, or if you want to take your Spanish to the next level, this is your sign to start. I've been using Lingoda for months now, and it's genuinely been a really helpful way for me to finally start speaking Spanish. Number 2 is choose which dialect, which variety you want to learn. So basically, you can learn Spanish from Spain, or you can learn Spanish from Latin America. The most I guess common option is Mexican Spanish, but there's also Argentinian Spanish, Colombian Spanish. Like every country's Spanish is a little bit different. That's not to say that, it becomes like a completely new language when you go to a different Spanish speaking country. No, it's still the same language, it's still Spanish. So yeah, this doesn't mean that if you're learning Spanish from Spain, you won't be able to understand people from Mexico or Argentina or Colombia or Peru or like Chile, whatever. But my advice would be to pick which variety of Spanish you want to learn from the very beginning, because for the longest time, I couldn't decide. I didn't know if I wanted to learn Spanish from Spain, Spanish from Mexico. I don't know, I didn't have a favorite accent. I didn't know if I wanted to travel to any of those countries. And because of that, I was constantly switching between resources, because 1 month I was like, okay, I'm learning Spanish from Spain because there are like so many movies on Netflix that I can watch, and then I have this textbook at home that I could use. But then the next month I would be like, no, actually I would really love to go to Mexico and travel through like Central America and South America, so maybe I should learn Mexican Spanish. And then I would like again change my resources, buy a new textbook and stuff like that. And I feel like that really slowed me down. You guys know that one of my biggest pieces of advice that I always give is, when you're starting a new language, choose one resource that you're going to focus on, because it just helps you avoid like confusion. And you know, sometimes you just spend so much time trying to decide which textbook to use, or like which, I don't know, app, YouTube channel to watch, whatever. So this is exactly what kept happening to me. I kept switching all the time. So don't do what I did and choose just one. It's going to be really helpful when choosing your resources. It's also going to be really helpful when doing your shadowing exercises, which is something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But basically, when you do shadowing, you just pick a video or like a recording of someone speaking Spanish, right? So if you're learning Spanish from Spain, you're going to choose things that are in Spanish from Spain, right? Like you're going to want to imitate that accent. But if you're learning Spanish from Mexico, the accent is a little bit different, right? So it also helps with that. So it gives you a consistent starting point for pronunciation and also for vocabulary. The thing with Spanish is that you can have like 15 different words that mean the same thing, and they are different because they are used in different countries. And at the very beginning, you don't need to learn all 15. You can just learn one. And then obviously, as you make progress, as you become more advanced, you will naturally pick up the other words that mean the same thing. If you're learning Spanish from Spain, just learn the words that they use in Spain. If you're learning Spanish from Mexico, choose the words that they're using in Mexico. And I promise you, it will make learning Spanish so much less overwhelming and so much easier. There are also some differences in grammar that you will encounter. For example, in Spanish, they use vosotros, and then in Latin America, they use ustedes. None of these differences mean that you need to obsess over them as a beginner. It's just when you're getting your input, when you're studying with your textbook, you want to make that process as smooth as possible. And I feel like limiting your like all the distractions is really helpful. And obviously, once you're advanced, you will naturally broaden your understanding. Number 3 is surround yourself with real Spanish immediately. I wouldn't wait until you're like good enough, until your level is good enough to start watching native content. My personal opinion is that I don't really like content made for language learners. It's just something that I always find a little bit boring. That's not to say that every single like YouTube channel or like podcast made for language learners is boring, because that's definitely not true. There are like thousands and thousands of different resources that you can pick. I'm just saying that in general, I tend to enjoy native content a lot more because I am able to find content about things that I am interested in. And when you're watching a video about something that you're interested in, you are much more likely to stay focused. And when you stay focused, you pick up a lot more. So even if you don't understand everything, that is fine. Even if you don't understand most of it, that is completely fine. You're still getting used to the pronunciation, to the rhythm. And also, I feel like this is something that's really helpful because in learners' content, people usually speak very slowly and they pronounce everything very like carefully. And that's not necessarily the case in real life. I feel like, especially in Spanish, people speak so fast. So watching native content very early on, or at least like once you reach the intermediate level, can really help with your listening comprehension, because you don't want to get used to just learners content. And then let's say you go to a Spanish speaking country and you hear real spoken Spanish for the first time, and you're going to be like, whoa, this is a completely different language. I know that this happened to me when I was learning French. I used to watch and listen to only like content made for language learners. And then I moved to France and everyone was speaking so fast. And I was like, what is going on? This is insane. This is a completely different language. And it's the same in Spanish and in any other language that you might be learning. The language you see in your textbook and the language they use in learners' content is a lot different than the language used in real life. I just watch native content about something that I'm actually interested in. For me, it's mostly books and sometimes like travel stuff and stuff like that. But for you, it might be something completely different, like, I don't even know. You can even watch like gaming videos and beauty videos. I used to watch a lot of like beauty content when I was learning English, and that really, really helped with my listening comprehension in English. And also, I feel like that way you're able to incorporate Spanish into your daily life a lot more easily, because let's say you like every evening to like relax, you watch some YouTube videos about something that you're interested in. Do it, but do it in Spanish, you know? So it doesn't feel like another chore. It just naturally starts becoming a part of your routine. Number 4 is learn whole phrases and not just individual words. When people ask me about learning vocabulary, this is one of my biggest pieces of advice that I always give, because it's so helpful, especially if your goal is to actually use the language, actually speak it. So instead of just memorizing individual words, I usually learn words in the context that they are used in. And Spanish has so many expressions that don't really translate word for word. So for example, instead of learning dar, which means to give, you can learn darse cuenta de. And that is a lot more helpful when you actually want to speak Spanish, because when you're actually having a conversation with someone, you don't have to think about, okay, I know this verb, but then I need to use this word with it, and then how do I like conjugate this and that? And you don't have to think about the grammar behind it. You just know how to use certain expressions and you know that they are correct. And that, I feel like, gives you such a huge boost of confidence when you know that the expression you want to use is correct. You don't have to think about it. So yeah, highly recommend. You can keep a list of phrases that you hear, for example, in movies or TV shows or videos, and then you can try to incorporate them into your own Spanish. So for example, when you're doing your Spanish speaking exercises, you can just look at your list and try to use a few new expressions that you heard or like saw a few days prior. And this also connects to number 2, which is choose the variety of Spanish that you want to learn, because depending on the variety of Spanish that you decided to learn, you will encounter different phrases, different expressions, which is another reason why having a starting variety can be really helpful, because a lot of expressions are specific to like one country or like one region even. Okay, and finally, number 5 is do lots of shadowing. I would start shadowing literally from the first time you pick up a Spanish textbook. Shadowing is one of the most effective language learning techniques. It helps you work on your pronunciation, but it's also a very good warm-up before you actually start speaking the language. So what is shadowing? If some of you don't know, it's very simple. You basically just take a clip, you take a video or a recording of someone speaking Spanish, and then you try to repeat after them, and you try to mimic their accent, their rhythm, their intonation. You basically try to sound exactly like them. At the beginning, you can use recordings from your textbook. It will be much easier because they will be much slower. But I would slowly start to incorporate more and more native content, because as I said, real life Spanish is a lot different than textbook Spanish. And I'd start with really short clips. I really like dialogues as well. So something that's like a minute long, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, nothing crazy. I definitely at the beginning, I wouldn't choose like a 15-minute video because that's just a lot. So yeah, something short. And for this, you can use anything, a podcast, a recording from your textbook, a YouTube video. And I also really like shadowing because at the beginning, obviously, you don't know enough to form your own phrases, your own sentences, but you still want to speak and you want to get your mouth used to speaking Spanish. So this is a very nice middle ground, because you're speaking Spanish, you're producing the sounds, you're getting used to the pronunciation, stuff like that, but you don't have to think about forming your own sentences, which is very helpful. And then as you become more advanced, you learn more vocab and stuff like that, and you finally feel like you're able to form your own sentences. It will be much easier to start speaking because you already have that base from shadowing. basically. So when I say that you need lots and lots of practice in order to feel comfortable speaking Spanish, I feel like shadowing is a very, very good starting point. Even if you're at the intermediate level, but you still don't feel comfortable speaking Spanish, this could be a very, very good warm-up exercise for you. Or even if you're at the advanced level and you just want to work on your accent, again, this is a great method. I use it all the time and I always recommend it. All right, that's it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. So these are the things that I would do differently if I could start learning Spanish again in 2026. Let me know in the comments if you're learning Spanish, which variety of Spanish you're learning, what's your level. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.